the rider we have to talk about,
yes.
the one that you know is going to get all of the cheers
yes.
out here today, is the hope of Canada, Michael Vandenham, riding for the Garneau Easton Transition Life Care Team out of Edmonton. He is the racer that everybody at this venue wants to win this Pan Am Championship.
Yeah, everybody watching from America, you cheer for Stephen Hyde. That's what they're doing here. This is your national champion, your Canadian national champion, Michael Vandenham, former U23 national championship or champion. And again, if you roll the clock back 1 year, he was a bronze medalist. So again, one of the hopes of Canada resting on this one is, look at this, Catherine Pendrell taking third place at Iceman, just dropping into our camera, making the 8-hour trip down and around back to this one.
Yeah, talk about the pride of Canada. It is pretty. When I saw her on the start list, it's Catherine Pendrell, world champion in mountain biking, cross country, deciding, what the heck, it's got 2 wheels, it's on dirt, I can go fast.
It's only 8 hours away from the race that I'm doing today.
Yeah, that's amazing. Racing Iceman yesterday, what'd you say, getting a bronze medal in that race?
Medal, yeah.
And then just making the trip overnight to show up for the Pan Am Championships. That's awesome. It's a great commitment. I love that she does that, for herself, I'm sure, but also for Canadian cycling and then also for Team Cliff Pro Team. So pretty cool. And we are getting ready for this start, Scott.
Yeah, as we are headed down there, let's do a quick check. Curtis White, Jamie Driscoll, Jack Kisserberth there, Cody Kaiser, Anthony Clark, Jeremy Powers rounding out your top 10 on the start line. And as we are.
And here we go. That is the whistle, and they are off. This is your elite men coming down, charging down that starting stretch.
Oh, you're good.
And
we're going to get a look as they pass us up here on the start line. It looks like Cody the Kid Kaiser going to the front as he knows how to do a fast starter. Had a good start yesterday. Good to see Cody on the front of that bike race.
Yeah, a name that we don't mention that much anymore. Still, I think he's having a great season. Cody is definitely staying on the front row of these bike races in these C2, C1 matchups, getting some UCI points, and maybe a breakout ride for him today as well. But really too early to say as our riders make their way through the playground section. Wait a minute away, and then we will see them coming to the beach and our beer tent.
Hey, Cody Kaiser, go back to the West Sacramento race, C2 race, 3rd place on day 1, 1st place on day 2. So Cody Kaiser has stood back atop of a UCI podium this year, which I'm going to say maybe it's been a couple years. I haven't looked back in the last year or two. He's sort of been in the top 10 spot, so it's good to see. Well, I still feel funny about calling him Cody the Kid Kaiser, but,
always the kid.
Old habits die hard, right? Cody wrote it, right?
He's definitely the kid at heart. That is for sure.
Got a great, I guess they call him a vlog, or is it a
vlog?
vlog?
I believe it's just a vlog.
There you go.
All right, and here we go. Here come your leaders. Let's see if there has been a change at the front. It certainly looks like there has. That looks like Kerry Werner.
Yeah, let's get a look. Here they come, man. Werner definitely on the front, and it looks like White, then Kaiser, then Vandenham right there. So that's your top 4 as they come through. This is going to be a little bit of a dicey section now. They're coming through this a lot faster than our previous racers were, obviously, because these are the elite men. And it looks like they're navigating that beer tent VIP area very well.
Garneau, a sponsor of this race, and it looked like the Garneau Easton team was taking that to heart. I believe all of them are up at the front in the top 10.
I like this. Where is Hyde, though? I have not seen Stephen Hyde come through. There he is. Finally, he's taking a bike. Did you see that? Going into the pit there. So something happened with Hyde. Now, what we've been hearing for the last 2 days is that first left turn off pavement, nothing wrong with the turn, but it's a very high-speed turn. It's a 90-degree left and then another 90-degree left. And we keep hearing, again, talking to Spencer Petrov about his U23 race, he said, I made some silly mistakes right off the start, and that was in those 2 left-hand turns where he said, I took myself out. In the very next corner, someone took me out. And that's just what you get when you sort of get caught in that scrum up there towards the front.
Some bad luck so far for the Cannondale Cyclocross World Team. Some crucial bike changes at crucial moments. We saw Cooper Wilsley late in the race having to take a bike that put him into 3rd place and kept him there. And now we're seeing Stephen Hyde having some issues in the beginning of this race and having to take a bike at pit 1. And going back to my point before, at least it happened then. At least he was early on within the first minute of this race. He was able to grab a new bike. Hopefully it's a machine that's going to allow him to work his way back up to the front of the race where I know he wants to be.
Yeah, you might say suboptimal, I would say, to start your bid to retain your Pan American Championships. If we look back at our Pan Am Championships, Stephen Hyde is our reigning champion, having won last year in Louisville. Ortenblad, silver medalist, as we mentioned before. Michael Vandenham, bronze medalist last year. Go back the year before, Stephen Hyde again. So he's a two-time champion. He'd love to go 3. Jeremy Powers, a silver medalist in 2016. And then not Spencer. Danny Summerhill was your bronze medalist in 2016, right?
Okay.
Go back 1 year, 2015. It was Powers, Driscoll, and Hyde. So the usual suspects up there. And that was actually the first year of the Pan American Championships for our elite men. Good to see Powers taking the start line out there. It'll be interesting to see how he's doing. He's still very much working his way back into form. He's another one of those riders who had a disrupted beginning to his season, having to take some time away from the bike as Werner hits the stairs first. But look at White right there ready to pounce.
We have one of our Garno East. I'm going to guess that maybe Jack Kisberth up there with that group.
Yeah, for sure, could be.
As our leaders make it up, Bo's a lot of double stepping.
I just would love to see Adam Meyerson stand at the top of the stairs telling him to ride between the stairs. That's what I keep hearing.
He'll only tell the New England guys
That's
that.
Right. Nobody we have seen riding between those sets of stairs. It's just long enough.
It was interesting when you were talking about Powers and coming back from injury. Not injury, just coincidental that 3 of our top riders all living within a mile or 2 of each other, all out on these training rides together. Hyde,
like the Northampton curse or something like that.
Hyde and Powers and Spencer Petrov. At one point, and it was not that long ago, where all of them were doing these rides, and Powers was saying none of them were going over 200 watts. They couldn't, or else they were just taxing themselves. And to think, you know, what that level is for these elite riders to where they are now, just a month later, the recovery and the ability to get back into racing at that top level, it's phenomenal. I can't even imagine it.
Yeah, it's good that they had other to train with, really. I mean, if you're gonna train with somebody, those are some good training partners to have. It sounds like they were on the same trajectory as well from a recovery.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll get a look as they make their way back through the frisbee golf section. It's the loneliest section on the course. They'll make their way back down to the bottom. Here we go. We're starting to pick them up in our shot here. This is sort of the bottom of the course. As you've made your way to the top of where the stairs are, that is the highest part of elevation. And you'll drop your way all the way back down to the bottom. If you're just joining us, welcome.
Yeah, welcome. This is Bill Scheiken with Scott Herman. We have been broadcasting live here from the outdoor lakefront property.
What was the warm section?
What was the warm section? The sun has kind of gone away, but here are our leaders, and look who has moved to the front. Michael Vandenham, the Canadian. Yeah. Trying to get this win here, but still early on. Kerry Werner right on his wheel. Curtis White in third. Got to get a check on our 2 Garno Easton riders behind them. But, Scott, this line just keeps going on and on. I count, about 10 riders in your lead so far?
Yeah, I think you're right. 8 to 10 riders up there. Whoa, get a little sideways. That looked like Ortenblad just hooking his bars on something and getting a little bit sideways. Didn't look like he went down, though. But let's watch this, Bill. As they go through this, we've been talking about it's not this corner. It's the corner coming up that has started to get slick as the day has gone by. I think they've scraped off that grass a little bit. We've had a couple riders go down in that corner as they make their way up. We'll call this pit 2.
One thing that I do notice, this is the first race that they're going a little bit wider before they make the U-turn, and it doesn't look like that extreme into the pits and out that we've seen in the other races. They've really widened the beginning of that turn that made it a more direct route into the travel lane and not having to swing into the pits. And here we go. We are about We got our group coming through there. Vandenham leading the parade of about 5 or 6 riders. And just through that sand, they lost about 3 or 4 riders off the back. It's a little smaller group than what we were seeing only moments ago, with Vandenham leading the way, Curtis White in second, Marc-Andre Fortier in third place. I'm sorry, it was not a Garneau-Easton. It's a Pivot Cycles, another blue kid. And then we have Jack Kisseberth in fourth place. That's the Garneau-Easton blue kid. Stephen Hyde has worked his way back up to fifth place. Drew Dillman in sixth place, another guy who's coming back from a pretty bad injury, broken hand, and is healing up and racing at the same time. And Max Chance, there's a name we have not mentioned in a while, in seventh place.
Yeah, rolling a little bit further down, eighth place, we got Tobin Ortenblad, then Anthony Clark, Peter DeSera, that's the older brother of the DeSera crew out of Canada, in 10th place. Dylan Postier, Trevor O'Donnell, Derek St. John, and Kristen Ricci. That's your top 14 rolling through. Top 15 is going to be Greg Griffo. And speaking of Griffo, that was the tire selection that I saw of most of those out there. Call it Griffo. Call it MXP.
Great segue there.
We talked about tire tread. And I think we were talking about tire tread a little bit at dinner last night with some of the racers, and they said, yeah, it was a full mud day, but they said even yesterday might have been a little aggressive, so they're definitely going to dial it back. We'll get a look at the tires after this one.
Cyclocross, we always joke about like the Belgians having 100 different names for mud, and they can describe from peanut butter to silt to every variation of mud. And as we see our leaders coming back to the beach area, we'll get a check on in a second. This mud was washing off. Yeah, we talk about Stephen Hyde working his way up.
What kind of mud is this here? It's kind of like
I think it's what I was going to say. It's shedding. It's not sticking to the tires, so that's why I think the more aggressive tread wasn't necessary.
Gotcha.
That they were able to get through it. It wasn't caking up. You didn't need that distance between the knobs on the tires.
It's kind of like the organic almond butter that you have to stir up every time.
Exactly. There's a lot of oil on the top.
Yeah. It's again, for those of you just joining, we talked a little bit about it before, but the soil content up here is very sandy. So if you see these lines out there, it's not that I would say it's not Midwest clay. It's not West Coast high mineral content, which can be a little bit slippery or sandy or dry. It's very much I would say a clay. Take a big hunk of clay and mix about a cup of sand in it, and that's about what you get. Dries quickly, and it sheds quickly. As
and a lot of sandy features out here. The groundskeepers must have been working overtime. I heard the stories about Cincy, in the run-up, how that was just all of the excess and old sand from the sand traps out there. I'm thinking, wow, what did the groundskeepers do out here to make this happen?
Keep it nice and dry right there. Drying course, and again, little bit of elevation on this course. If you didn't hear before, I'm going to say I think we said about 60 feet of elevation from lakefront to top of the stairs.
Yeah, what you're looking at here is if you see about the upper third of your picture. Now we switched over to the lower line of our leaders coming through. There's still a long train of riders. They're going to work their way to the party zone, to Heckle Hill, as Scott has coined it, and these tricky turns and U-turns and chicanes, and then an off camber all together. But as this course continues to dry out, I think our lap times are going to be faster and faster. In fact, you
can just start to see the bottom line of people. So up in those trees, just out of camera sight, that's what we're calling Heckle Hill. It's up, down, back on itself, up, down one more time, off camber, left and right, and that's where that's the party zone up there. That seems to be where all the team tents are, where all the fans are watching, because it takes them about 30 seconds to get through there. You can get some good viewing up there.
7:55 for our first lap. That was the time. Sort of what we actually. It was interesting when we saw the lap times yesterday. We were guessing what the elite men would do as far as lap times. I kind of thought it'd be a little quicker. It'll be interesting to see if they pick it up. But that being said, 22.7 kilometers per hour average, and as Vandenham and Werner still lead the way coming up the stairs. Curtis White looking good. It's Sunday, so we have a clean-shaven Curtis White.
That's right, and Hyde making up ground now. He's back up to fourth place. Again, he had to take a pit bike with about a half a lap in. He had to take a pit bike in traffic, and I thought that spelled trouble for him, but he is slowly making his way back up now, working his way into the top 5.
Tobin Ortenblad, kind of what we were saying with the results. falling back a little from the front. Still in the top 10, but we'll see if he's able to turn that around with laps coming up. But right now we have our usual suspects at the front. We got Vandenham and Werner, and as you said, a Hyde on the move. And I have a feeling that when we see them again, we may see Stephen Hyde, if not in second place, leading this race. That will be my prediction.
Yeah, and they're all, everybody's taking notice of that. When he was not there, I'm sure at least Kisselberth was looking around thinking, okay, good. We don't need him up here. We don't want him up here. That's going to cause nothing but problems when he does get up here. But what we could see is with, you've got the national championship jersey on, both Vandenham and Hyde. There's a lot that comes with that. When you're on the front, there's an expectation that you're going to do a little bit more work and pull a little bit harder. Hey, you've got the two national champions up there. Why do any work? Why not just sit on their wheel, let them fight it out? So the question will be, if Hyde's at 100% and he does get to the front and Vandenham's there, what happens then when you get your two nations on the front?
One thing that I will say that I saw yesterday, and Michael Vandenham is a super strong rider, and I'm not going to question his tactics. I'm just going to note that
it's a disclaimer.
Watching him race yesterday, he was closing down moves up front, and it looked like he was going really deep to do that.
I would say yes, and I would go one layer deeper and say there was times when he was on the front when I thought you should probably get off the front, not for any other reason than let or make other people do some work. And I point that out because for a lap and a half now, Vandenham on the front where maybe he needs to be, maybe he wants to be, maybe he's feeling that good. And nobody knows better than Michael Vandenham.
And we both noted what the case was. Gage Hecht, who we know isn't racing this race, he already won his Pan American Championship. Had about 4 or 5 seconds on Vandenham coming down the start stretch. This is a world-class time trialist who is sort of just cruising down there, and Vandenham really looked like he was burning some matches trying to track him down. So just something to keep in the back of our heads if it's going to affect those kinds of efforts. Yesterday will affect him later in this race.
Look at him though; he looks good. He's standing out of every corner, powering his way out of every corner. That's a good look at Michael Vandenham right there.
Takes that nice pro look back. He wants to gauge the situation, see where everyone is. He has Werner right on his wheel. He has White after that. He has Stephen Hyde in 4th place. I predicted that Stephen Hyde would move up, but with this close quarters, with this race so tight, I think he may be happy where he is for a little while.
Look at this. We got the road tactics again. Vandenham swings out, swings wide, looks over his shoulder and says, anybody else? Doors open, come through. Same thing it looked like from our other riders, as Werner did the same thing and said, come on through if you want to. And it looks to be Cody Kaiser
says, okay, no problem, I'll do it.
Doors open,
be happy to do
coming
that.
in.
So Vandenham, looks like Kaiser may have moved his way into the front, but Vandenham did cross over the line first, followed by Curtis White. Marc-Andre Fortier, there's a guy we have not talked about on that pivot team. Really looking steady in 3rd place. Started with a 13th bib, 2nd row start, already worked his way up into that front group and into 3rd place. Stephen Hyde, as we mentioned, in 4th place, followed by Jack Kisselberth in 5th. Kerry Werner dropping down to 6th, but that really doesn't mean anything. We'll call it same time for this whole group. And then Anthony Clark, 3 seconds back, but right there, right in that front group. We haven't mentioned his name as well. He is definitely one to watch. He likes the twists and the turns. He's another guy who did well in those Sacramento races, but you give him stuff to sketch on and go up and down curbs as you saw him riding around after Cincy. He just has fun. And this is a race that really sets up for his skills.
Yeah, I'm going to say Marc-Andre Fortier, not someone on my short list out there. And my guess is there's a few people in that front group that feel the same way, where they go, I look around, if I'm Vandenham, I look around and I go, I know White, and I know Hyde, and I know Kisselberth, and I know Werner, and I know Kaiser, but there's this guy that I'm not 100% sure about. As we've got a little bit of action going out the front, it looks like White may have flown the coop, as it looks like maybe White has gone off the front of this one. We'll get a look at him as they make their way around, but I think maybe testing out the group a little bit.
That is a Curtis White move. He is not afraid just to put in these these moves. He may be, I mean, physically just looking like the strongest guy out there. He is a huge road racer, and he likes testing the field. You know, he's almost like the Zdenek Štibar of American cyclocross. You know, when everybody else is sitting in and not doing anything, and he's just like, all right, boys, let's go. And that's kind of the Curtis White move.
Look at that. Drew Dizzle-Dillman making his way up to that lead group. It looked like the SDG rider just catching the back of that train. And as you mentioned, that's another one coming back, suffered a multiple broken fingers, I think, at Trek Cup this year. He was on Lars van der Haar's wheel, and they met a barrier together, and apparently he came out with a couple broken fingers. 5 weeks in, cut the cast off himself at home, and he's back racing 2 weeks after that. So 7 weeks later or so, racing here at the front of our Pan American Championships. This is our elite men's race.
Marc-Andre Fortier. I sort of suspected this. You know, mountain biking in Canada is really the premier cycling discipline. Marc-Andre Fortier, a cross-country mountain biker, racing a lot of World Cups. 22 years old. Pivot Cycles. You know, ended up 20th in Lenzerheide for the men's under 23 cross-country World Championships. Here's a crazy thing. Also competing in the downhill.
Okay.
So that's pretty neat. Second in Canadian National Championship cross country last year. So definitely
the drop
a strong
off from the stairs not scaring him at all.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, he's probably doing that while checking his phone.
That's right. As our riders getting out there, we're hearing 6 laps to go on the lap counter. I believe that would be for our lead riders as well. So 6 laps to go out there as they make their way around the course. As the sun starts to go away a little bit, the temperature definitely falling very quickly out here at Little Lake in Midland, Ontario. Again, if you're just joining us, welcome to the 2018 Pan American Championships. We are just a couple laps into our elite men's race. Next up will be our elite women's race. And right now we've got a good group of 5 or 6 riders off the front on what has turned out to be a very fast track, as the rider is dealing with a lot of mud, a lot of broken derailleurs yesterday, broken chains, drivetrain issues, you name it, and we are seeing nothing of the sort today.
They are sprinting up these stairs. Curtis White leading the way. Hyde has now moved his way into 3rd place behind Van and Ham. Checking our average speed that last lap, 23. This is the first time we're seeing a group head into the 23 kilometers per hour range. So even though they were looking around, they weren't slowing down.
It's amazing to me, for those of us listening and watching that race cyclocross, we all go out and race. If we can get our lap splits, we look at them, we go, yeah, you know, I started pretty fast. I got slower, and then my last lap was my fastest lap. These races all day long at this level, every lap gets faster than the lap before. That is absolutely amazing to me. We have not seen a positive split yet. It's been a negative split lap every single lap all day long.
You know, and this is the thing that may change in this race. It's always possibly the knock on the men's racing for an hour, or just what happens in these races is that we get to this middle section of the race where we're coming up to now. You said 6 laps to go. I would imagine in the next lap or so, we always see this lull. It always seems like they throttle down a little bit, take a look around, see what's happening. We'll see some soft pedaling down the finishing stretch, and then it's on again. And for proponents of shorter men's elite races like myself, I'd love to see 50, 55 minutes.
Here we go again.
Yes, I know. I'm going to get in trouble for this for every time I say this. But the reason is it keeps it exciting the whole time, and you don't have that mid-race lull.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, for those of you who have been around when I've announced like live criteriums and some of these longer cross races, these 60-minute cross races, it plays out time and time again, whether mentally or physically. I break them down into 20-minute increments, right? First 20 minutes is everything you've got. You are trying to get rid of all the riders off the back. You want to make the selection. And I think it is that after that time, it's like, well, that's all my body has. Now I have to, like you said, throttle it back. The brake is established. Let's figure out the right lines and make sure that we've got everything dialed in there. Last 20 minutes, game's back on again. It's not every race, but that can be the way to break some of these down.
Curtis White relinquishing his lead to the Canadian champion Michael Vandenham back out front. I really think Vandenham feels like he has to control this race. He is not one to sit back. He wants to be in control. He's actually had a couple races now where riders in front of him have made mistakes, and that has cost him podium spots or even wins, and I know that he does not want to be in that position today. So we may see Vandenham out on the front of this race as long as he possibly can stay there. If anything, he doesn't want to be anywhere outside of that 1 or 2 spot with this big group that's coming through here. A different story if it's maybe just him and one other rider or a group of 3, but we still have a really large group in 20-some minutes into this race.
2 men going away right now, 2 riders going away. That's going to be White and Vandenham. As they make their way through there, that is danger. And as you said, Vandenham 3rd place yesterday. He does not want the same mistake yesterday. He came in 3rd place to Hyde and Hecht yesterday. Doesn't have to worry about Hecht today. Hecht racing in the U23 men's and winning that one, but he does have to worry about Hyde. And so I think you called it. I think Vandenham said, when I get the opportunity, I'm going to split this race apart, see if I can get someone away. Now, he looked back and said, all right, Hyde, you're sitting back there 4th, 5th spot. Maybe now's the time to create a gap. And as you know, once you get a 5 bike length gap, that's no man's land in between. That's hard to bridge.
Yeah, certainly. You need more people there to work together, and you also need the riders ahead not to be friends. And at this point, I think that Vandenham and Curtis White are perfectly happy to have a little bit of a détente, not to attack each other too much, and just try to see if they can separate themselves as much as possible from the rest of the field and just figure out who between the 2 of them is going to get that Pan Am jersey. Still a ton of racing to go, but that's what our race situation is right now.
And if you're Vandenham, you look around and you go, okay, I got Curtis White with me. How do I feel about that? And if
anytime there was a rider that you're like, maybe I'll sit behind him, Curtis White is that rider, because that's a big body, a big, strong body that can put out a huge amount of watts, and he may be happy just to tuck in behind White, assuming that White wants to do that work. So that's where, you got to be able to be friends for a little while and then play it out from there.
It's a long topic that many people will debate ad nauseum, and
as soon as we say it, they're all back together.
That's right. I was going to say is that don't forget they're not in the same color kit, but Curtis White does have a teammate in this bike race in Stephen Hyde.
For sure. And once again, take a look at that water off to the right-hand side. Those waves. There aren't waves on this lake, but there are today. And
it's
that's
a little bitty lake. They shouldn't have waves this big.
And that's the wind that's coming up, and it just keeps on pushing up. You can even see some of the seagulls who are having a hard time keeping aloft as they come over that flyover. Still a big group, a big line. Anyone in there could make a move and get away and take this race. There's still a lot of nervous bike racers at the front of this one.
What a great course out here. Again, they've got flyovers, they've got stairs, they've got sand, they've got mud, they've got curb overs. They have everything that it takes to make this a Pan American championship type course, and the Silver Goose has done an excellent job in getting this done. Why the Silver Goose? I don't know why they call it the Silver Goose, but what I do know is that they have a sort of a traveling trophy at the end of the day that all of our champions get to hold up. They get
pressured into kissing the goose.
They do. They have to kiss the goose.
Goes up to kiss the goose.
Right. It's a big. I don't know if you saw the podiums from last night. Anyone on there of Ellen Noble holding up that goose overhead? It's a it's a life-size goose. It's silver. It's got names along the bottom. You're right. The Canadian fans all start chanting "Kiss the Goose" when you're up there.
All right, we are seeing our line of riders make their way through. We were talking about the lull, and I'm not saying that it started this early, but the pace of those riders coming through that stretch, it does not look as high as it did the lap before. We were standing there yesterday and seeing the speed, especially of Hecht and Vandenham and Hyde, who were chasing down Hecht, and the speed that they came through that section, I must say, was faster than what we're seeing right now.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. Let's watch them on the stairs as they come up here in about, I'm going to say 30 seconds or so, because if they go too wide up the stairs, that tells us a little bit about that pace, right? And And
this
again,
is the first race we've seen that where they're almost wanting to go 3 wide up those stairs. This has been a single file feature other than Ruby West. She was the first person to sort of go 2 wide on here. But in this field, it seems like any open space is somewhere that they can go, and they don't mind coming out to their left to try to make the pass going up the stairs.
Yeah, and if that is the case, and we'll know a little bit here in just a moment. So here we go. It looks like Vandenham on the front and White right there. Still moving pretty quick. Hyde, kiss of birth.
We talk about shouldering versus carrying, and watch how everybody is swinging that left arm. They're going so fast that they need that. They want their bodies straight. They don't want to have that left hand on the bike that's going to impede their running speed. You know, this is definitely, yesterday I was questioning it. It was slower paces, and it seemed like the speed of shouldering was the same speed as just lifting your bike and running up. Not the case here. I think it is a much faster technique to be shouldering your bike because you can open up your body, as we see Drew Dillman coming up here, swinging that left arm vigorously, helping him get up those stairs. Much faster technique to be shouldering the bike.
Yeah, it's something that the elite riders need to learn a lot about and do a lot of it, but I'm not going to say it's the technique that we don't talk about a lot in American cyclocross. There aren't terribly a lot, of course, even on the UCI level, that require long runs, long shouldering, things like that, so it's probably not something that they practice a lot, I would say, but knowing what they've got to deal with today, definitely something that they're going to have to do. That is a double run. That's not a replay that you keep seeing. It's a run up the first set, swing left, run across about a 25-meter gap, and then run up the second step. And those they're not standard length stairs. They're a little bit higher, I would say, than normal.
Yeah, so the guys that are up there double stepping them, they're definitely going a little higher on each of those steps. We noted how we didn't think, or at least I didn't think the pace was as high when they came to that lower line that we can see on the steps. Once they got to the steps, though, it looked like it was pretty full out.
They were back on, right? And this is, again, there's a little bit of jockeying for position. So we talked about it before. They get to the top of the steps, they take a right, they clip back in, they go around a corner, they have to navigate a curb over onto a steep, rutted, muddy downhill. So there might be some jockeying for position there. You ride behind someone, again, for those cross racers, know, you ride behind somebody once and you notice that they don't handle it very well. Next time, you are not going to be behind that person. You're either going to give them a gap or you're going to get in front of them, as Vandenham goes back to the front, again, of this bike race now with White right there. Here's what I will say to your point before of, is this the lull? If this is the lull, well, Vandenham and Curtis White have been setting the tempo of the lull. You know who hasn't been? Hyde. And right behind him is Werner, and then right behind him is our pivot rider,
Marc-Andre Fortier.
Right. Yeah, right. So they haven't been pushing the pace. So again, if this is Vandenham and White's pace pushing, those 3 riders behind are sitting pretty nice right now.
Did you see how hot Vandenham came off that curve? That he was pretty much into that stake on the right-hand side to make that turn back to the left. He's letting it all hang out. Now there's no holding back from Michael Vandenham on the front of this race.
Ooh, I gotta say, I'm gonna say it again. He has been on the front for a very long time. Can it be done from the front? Well, ask Magnus Sheffield if it can be done from the front. Yes, is the short answer. The long answer is, look at the people behind him, though. The race resume of these riders is deep and
Curtis
strong.
White, the road racer, taking stock of everyone. He's the one that really wants to know what's going on. Also, Vandenham doing the same thing. Vandenham putting in those big efforts, and now he's looking at the damage that he has done. And the damage that he has done is he has gotten this down to 5 riders. We have Michael Vandenham, Curtis White, Stephen Hyde, Jack Kisseberth, Kerry Werner. That is your top 5, and then there's a couple seconds back, 9 seconds from the leader, to Anthony Clark, Cody Kaiser, and Marc-Andre Fortier, who has dropped off the pace now.
Oh, okay, so that was not him.
That was
lead
Kisseberth,
group.
I think, with
You're
the blue
right.
kit.
It was definitely, my apologies, that was Kisseberth. Not taking anything away from him, fast rider for sure. Their kits just look obviously similar a little bit, so that now we know he is the one in that lead group. But
yeah, we got the Cannondale and the Kona kit,
the Kona
and now the
Cannondale
Pivot kit and the Garneau Easton kit are all very similar.
All look similar from a distance. My apologies, but boy, that win really kicking up. I know we keep saying it, but I can't put too fine of a point on it because they are coming into that section where it is all wind, all in the face. And again, if you are a savvy racer, which it takes a little bit of strength and a lot of bit of savvy out there to navigate the human chess match that is bicycle racing, and that's what we're seeing out there right now is lots of test fires. That's what I'll call from Curtis White. I think that was absolutely a test fire a couple laps ago where he said, let's just see what happens here. If I go, will anyone come? The answer is yes, so I'll go back and we'll reset.
Kisseberth now on the front as Vandenham has dropped back. Looks like Kisseberth, White, Vandenham, Werner, and tail gunning is Stephen Hyde.
Yeah, that's
look at Hyde wanting to make that move around Werner in the sand. We haven't seen nobody. We have seen nobody pass in the sand. That is Hyde, I think, showing us that he may have something in that back jersey pocket.
Look at the dabbing going on. That whole line through there. I thought I saw Werner dab a couple times in that sand. That is becoming a troublesome section. I think maybe that rut that was worn in and wet has become dry enough that it's falling apart a little bit because we are starting to get some of these riders getting a little sideways down there by the beer garden.
Yeah, maybe Werner was having some trouble earlier. There's a lot of muddy sections. It's drying out, but still some muddy sections up in our playground section that happens right before the beach. Maybe Hyde saw something that he wasn't too comfortable being behind Werner and wanted to get
surprising.
around.
I will say, very surprising that he put in that little dig on a dicey corner, I'll say. That was an iffy pass, not in a shady way, but the outcome could have been very bad for either one of them, and it begs the question, why there, why then? But you're right, there was something that he didn't like or didn't want to see, and made his way around.
Just looking at the rest of our riders coming through, Ortenblad currently in 9th place, Drew Dillman in 10th, Max Chance 11th, Dylan Postier 12th place, Peter DeSera in 13th.
And I believe we just saw Hyde ride into first place just there. I think he has come up, and that this is sort of when you're looking down those stairs, I'm going to say they're not bottom shelf, they're not top shelf, they're sort of middle shelf of the elevation on the bike race. And it looks like Hyde now on the front.
That pass that he made, it's sort of, knowing Stephen Hyde, that was kind of a chomping at the bit.
Maybe
so,
right?
He was like, I had the early mechanical issues, got those cleared out, hung on for a while, kind of got a good view of what everybody's doing. And he's like, I need to be at the front of this race.
He's doing the Jens vote. It's time to get going now.
Exactly.
They're making their way up in that twisty-turny section again. You can just see the bottom of that section up in the woods on your shot right now as you look up into the parking lot area above that. That is, well, we're calling it Heckle Hill as they make their way through there. Again, not any spot up there really. I don't think there's any passing going on up there. There's the Tim Johnson commit to the rut up there, and you've got to ride those ruts and just stay right there, single file, as we see Hyde, Vandenham, then White, then Werner, then Kisseberth coming through there. And it looked like they were getting a sixth rider joining there. I don't know if that was a lapped rider. We'll get a look. Should be right about now. Is that Anthony Clark?
Anthony Clark making his way up to that leading group.
Right on. So Squid Squad making his way up there.
I will mention one name just because, you know, people always want to know where Jeremy Powers is coming back from injury. You talk to Jeremy, he's pretty upfront about it. He is not 100%.
That's right.
But he wants to be out here. He feels like he is a bike racer. He wants to be out there. He wants to show up for people. People love seeing him at races. They're 441 back, 24th place, just going over the line. Still haven't seen Powers' name. Be interesting to see if he's still in here. He may have called. It may not be there. He may have called it a day already.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. Talking to him a little bit after the race from Cincinnati, and he had done something, dismounted the bike incorrectly or something like that, and said, "You know what? I just twinged my back a little bit. It's bothering me, and I hope he's not still suffering from that." I did not have a chance to talk to him before the race today. To see exactly how he was feeling and how he was doing. But like you said, don't see him right now. Best wishes for Jeremy Powers again for a speedy recovery this year. Love to see him back at the front of the bike race. As more of our, runners at this point running up the stairs as they're coming through. And we'll get a look down here at the start-finish line as they make their way around there. You're going to see 3 laps to go. There's 3 laps to go on the lap counter. And they are making their way into the windy section. It's very windy out there again today. Downwind section, a little bit of a downwind run. Right now they're in the windy section, though, as they make their way back and around the playground / frisbee golf area as they make their way back down to the sand pit one more time on this lap. 37 minutes in.
You know, Scott, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't see Powers at the start. And on our start
list.
on
the start sheet, but I never saw him.
But
You're
you
right.
know, we aren't getting updated start lists. So there is a chance, and I apologize for even misleading people in this way, and it's not, you know,
sitting at
this
home.
one's on us. He may, after yesterday's race, not even taking the start today. I am not sure about that, so I don't want to give any misinformation. It's just one of those things that we don't know at this point, and we're not getting that data on these riders. Here we go. Michael Vandenham back to the front. He saw Hyde take that lead, and he was like, "You're in my country. I am going to take control here. You can just sit back and take it easy. This is my race to lose."
It's a beautiful sight to see the Canadian national champ leading right now the U.S. national champ in this bike race. Looks like they're dropping one off the back. Kissebird looks like he's in a bit of a spot of bother because we went from 5 up front now to 4 up front, as this is now becoming a race of attrition.
And we're talking about Vandenham. We're talking about Hyde. We talked about Curtis White. We disparagingly a little bit talked about Kerry Werner, but Werner is the guy that we haven't really mentioned about going up front.
As they do the same as they've been doing before, and that is, again, Vandenham on the front, again for another lap, leading everyone around, and again coming through that start-finish area. Vandenham swings to the right side. That's the opposite side of where the wind's coming from. Looks over his left shoulder, does all but get his left hand out in motion for people to come through. And everybody looks at him and says, you know what? I don't think so. It seems a little bit early for me. I don't know if that's a chance I want to take, as they are seeing 3 laps to go. And so there's still, like you said, a lot of bike racing.
You talked about your trimesters of a cyclocross race, the 20-minute breakdowns. We're in that final one now, and it has just begun.
Yeah, I mean, I would say, looking at the racers, looking at how their posture as they came through that time, I would say we're ripe for an attack pretty soon, even if it's another test fire.
So I am getting confirmation, and again, I apologize for leading people a bit of astray. Jeremy Powers did not start today.
No, he did not start. Okay. Well, that answers why we couldn't find him then. Okay. Well, doesn't change the fact that we wish him the best as he works his way back into it. A lot of J-Pal fans out there.
Since we've been mentioning it every lap, I will tell you that they are continuing to go faster. 23.3 kilometers per hour is our average with 5 laps done in this race.
Again, for all of you cyclocross racing fans that are out there watching right now, go ahead. Next time in your bike race, make sure that you are negative lap sprinting every single time as our racers are coming back.
You know how I mentioned that we hadn't really talked about Kerry Werner?
And
he is now leading this race.
Here he goes back to the front. And again, this is the caginess of Werner. He is there's a lot of things that you could say about racers, but he's sort of the thinking man's racer, and that is he seems to run a very tactful race in that he's always trying to figure out where the easy spots are, where the maybe the weakness of his competitors are. Not saying that other ones don't do that. However, he always seems to have a trick up his sleeve that he's trying to play on everybody.
This is a rider who came over from mountain biking, decided within the last 4 or 5 years that he was going to concentrate on cyclocross. Still does some mountain bike races, but cyclocross now his main discipline. Has been racing at the top end of the sport in North America for that time. Here was a surprise, Scott. Charm City this year, first C1 race Kerry Werner won.
Just this year was his first time. Yeah.
So he is still getting better. He is still figuring out the sport and still getting faster. So that he was the one that was sitting 4th, 5th spot up until now and is now sort of testing the waters does not surprise me. This year, with all of the success that he's had, is a confident rider and one who feels like, I think him and Stephen Hyde have always had this friendly competition, have gone back and forth, but Hyde has always really in most instances, I think Rochester last year, he was able to beat him on day 2. But other than that, Hyde has always had his number. I think that Werner now believes that Hyde is somebody that he can beat. Vandenham, he's beaten him several times, also with White. So Werner is in a position of strength and confidence, and he is definitely one that we need to keep our eyes on as we keep coming through here.
You know, you remind me of the days going back 3, 4, 5 years ago when the question was always, guy we've been talking about, was who can beat Powers, and not as a fluke, who can beat him with confidence. And what you just said sounded like the discussion we had about Stephen Hyde just a few years ago, and that is gaining confidence. And then you said something like he's confident enough that he believes that he can beat Stephen Hyde. And I would say, yeah, you nailed it, because that's the posture that Kerry Werner is riding with this year, and that is the confidence. Not only does he belong up there, but he can win up there as well.
You know, it's really interesting too, and it's a bit of a change that we've seen since the Powers domination. Oh my goodness, Stephen Hyde goes down hard on that first step. That is not good to see, especially coming back from that broken sternum. We do not want to see that. We'll check in on him, but that allowed Curtis White to get the jump on there, and we have now a group of 3 as Hyde is still down. And as I said, we will check on his condition as soon as we know something matter. That was a nasty-looking crash by Hyde. Oh,
that was a full pile drive into it. Looks like he just maybe didn't unclip his left shoe maybe and went to step, and it was too late. He looks like he is up. I'm glad the camera's staying on him just a little bit there as we get a look at him, but that was a full pile drive into, not mud, into stone steps, and a very sharp one. So never want to see that. Heart goes out to Stephen Hyde. It looks like he is up. I don't know if his bike is damaged or not.
You know, we're not saying that he is. I'm sure he is hurting, but just to see him being able to pick up his bike and to start running it now, even shouldering it and getting going. But right there, taking that break, I think that Stephen Hyde is going to be coasting to the bottom of this hill, and his day may be done. And boy, I hope that he is not injured
again
severely on that crash. I mean, even seeing, we know you race, you have all of that adrenaline going, you can be hurt much worse and your body still is able to respond, and it may not kick in till later. So wishing the best for Stephen Hyde. As soon as we have an update on his condition, we will get that word out to you.
Bike races aren't known for their padding, and he took a full side into that one. I think that was a helmet contact, a hip contact, an elbow contact in the stone step. So won't belabor the point, but hopefully he's feeling better, because that one's tough. Now, if you're in that group with Hyde and you see him go down like that, question then is always begged is, what happens next? Do you push the pace a little bit? Those racers up front have no idea. They saw Hyde go down. As far as they know, he jumped right back up again. But a guy like White now on the front, he'll be looking over his shoulder and will notice not necessarily who's there. He's going to notice who's not there. When he looks back, he can see Vandenham now. He can see Werner. And this race, ladies and gentlemen, this race is down to 3 racers now. There are only 3 racers in that lead group. And they've got a big enough gap that this may be your podium, but I just don't know in what order this one's going to shake out of.
This is how to word this. Now, he didn't take advantage of somebody getting hurt. No. He took it. He was able. Curtis White was in the right spot at the right time. He was coming around ahead of Hyde when he went down, which made both Vandenham and Werner have to check up just a touch, and that allowed White to get out front and to stay out front. And I can tell you this, Stephen Hyde's lying on the ground. If he wants anybody to be up front, it's going to be his teammate Curtis White. So
true enough.
So he is already with a couple-second lead as they're coming to the finish. I just want to put a pin on our conversation. Just got a text from Jeremy Powers, always the good guy. It's good that he's at home watching the broadcast on TV. He just wanted to let us know that he had to go back home to rehab his back on Friday, so he wasn't here yesterday either. He came out, he pre-rode, so I know that I saw him out here, but having issues with that back, decided not to test it out on course, not to race. Is looking even farther down the line to the rest of the season. So he's going back home, gonna get some PT on that, but not racing this weekend.
Good to hear that he's working his way back. We always, like I said, want to see Jeremy Powers back, healthy. racing in a sport that, well, he helped build up into this point. So it'll be good to see him back in short order as we are seeing some of our riders coming through. Headed back out onto the course. We'll get a quick look at the lap counters and let you know that there are 2 laps to go right now. 2 laps to go in this Elite Men's Pan American Championship race here in Midland, Ontario, Canada. And again, if you're just joining us, we are 2 laps to go in this bike race. We got a couple riders, 3 riders in particular off the front. Curtis White, Michael Venningham, and Kerry Werner. Last time we got a chance to check, White had a bit of a gap.
Yeah, but it looks like just coming through the start line, he was already at 7 seconds, and we're going to get a check on him now. Here he is, only one in your picture, Scott. Look at this as he makes his way down to the beach. Couple more laps to go in this race, but it is all being controlled by Curtis White. Coming around that little rutted section, no problem with that. Vandenham and Werner now in the position of having to chase. There's a little bit of panic here because they do not want Curtis White to get too far ahead, especially this late in the race. Only, 15 minutes left in this race. That is something that Curtis White can hold on to. So it's up to Michael Vandenham. It's up to Kerry Werner to chase him down. Kerry Werner, again, we talked about how smart he is, how wily he is. I'm sure he's thinking right now, hey, Michael Vandenham, we're in Canada. This is the Pan Am Champs.
That's right.
You're the guy who's supposed to be winning this. Go chase him down.
Go chase him down. You look at Curtis White and you ask the question, can he do it on this stage? Can he win a Pan American Championship? Well, I would say just look at history. He is not a 1-time, but a 2-time U23 Pan American champion. So, yes, he can win a Pan American Championship. If you go back to 2014, beating Logan Owen, there's a name for
I was just gonna mention that, Curtis White is thinking, where's Logan right now? Because usually the greatest battles that we remember with Curtis White were him and Logan Owen going at it, be it at Nationals or the Pan Am Championship.
Beat Logan Owen in 2014, 2016, beating out Gage Hecht. So yes, White can ride to the front of this one. I'm sure he will be on a plane tonight from Toronto because he's probably got class tomorrow morning. He takes a full boat of classics studies.
8-second lead from White back to Vandenham, who looked like he had about a second lead over Kerry Werner in 3rd place.
Yeah, and he looks like he is just pulling away. Again, we make the remarks about road racers and mountain bike racers and tactics and things like that. And Curtis White, I would almost say he's more of a road racer than a cross racer. I'm not going to say that's where he got started or anything like that, but the tactics that you get from that and the experience and ability to ride at a high cadence, high pace, he's definitely refined that, I'd say, on the road. So there are riders that are off the front that I say, but they'll probably come back. Curtis White is not one of those.
Yeah, a road rider, road racer, an accomplished road racer for rally, but grew up on the dirt. So it's not like we're looking at this guy thinking, well, he doesn't have the handling skills. He's just an engine. Not the case at all. I mean, we look at him running up these stairs. That is textbook form as he's coming up that first set of stairs. Michael Vandenham now distancing himself a little bit from Kerry Werner. Curtis White, also like 6'2", 6'3", Curtis White. Right. So the long legs, being able to take those steps 2 at a time, no problem.
So again, 3 riders off the front right now. I think this is your virtual podium based on no incidents or accidents or anything like that. But again, I'm not going to say that this one is this one's not done, not sorted out. Certainly not silver and bronze, not sorted out on this one so far. As we got a whole host of other riders making their way up to the top. Looks like Anthony coming through right behind him. Jack coming through as well. There's Anthony Clark on the front. Jack Kisselberth right behind him as they head up the stairs. That's your battle for 4th and 5th place.
Yeah, one thing to note is that Kisselberth, if he can work his way back up there, I'm not sure if he can. We were talking about Hyde and White being teammates. We also have Kisselberth and Vandenham, who are teammates for that Garneau Easton team. But I think that the spread at this point may be a little too far for those tactics to even come into play. I think that, for all of the work that Michael Vandenham has done in this race so far, this is it for him now. He can almost look at this as his final lap. He needs to catch Curtis White, and he needs to do it now. It's just to see if he has anything left to be able to do that.
Yeah, if you're Curtis White, again, we talked about it in earlier races, no time to throttle back in any way, shape, or form. You've still got a lot of bike racing in front of you yet, and you know that there is big firepower behind you. So no time to sit up, no time to take it easy, as we see. It looks like Orton Blad. Again, not the season he was wanting so far, but we're still, we've still got some time left in the season, even with Nationals moving up a little bit.
And we're seeing, I mean, not to pick on Tobin at all, he's still moving great, but there's definitely a different pace going up those steps than what we saw in our leaders. And it looks to me like Vandenham is starting to close it down.
Oh, Canada, coming back right now. It looks like he is coming back to White's wheel. I don't know if White has sat up intentionally a little bit or if he's just feeling a little bit of it. Look at this, Vandenham now right back into the picture with White. That is trouble if you're White. And look at Werner now. He knows that train's leaving the station. He wants to get up to Vandenham's wheel. Motivated is what I would say Michael Vandenham is right now.
This is one of those, Michael, he can feel it. He can feel it. He sees that carrot out there. It's green and not orange, but Michael Vandenham wants to be ahead by the time they get through the start-finish line, which he's going to be at in a minute. He's going to be right on the wheel as he makes a turn up and out of the saddle. Look how hard he is pushing. He wants to be on that wheel.
Tactically, this is genius. What he's doing is he's putting in a lot of watts on the downwind section, right? So he can get up to his wheel. He's going to burn some matches to do that, but what can happen is he can get on White's wheel. This is a downwind run right now. They're going to get the 1 lap to go bell. And then he puts White on the front in the windward section. That's what they're coming up to.
And White with his head down. Vandenham
is able, around.
Exactly what you said. White had his head down, was going. Vandenham actually put his head. Oh, and he's making the pass right after the finish. Whoa, exactly what you were talking about not to do. This is what Michael Vandenham wants to do.
Hey,
he is going to the front.
On the ropes, right? He said,
throw your road tactics out the window, Scott Herman. I'm going to the front.
That's right. He said, well, if you've been on the front for a while pushing, and if he's feeling that good, he went right around to the front and pushed his way away. And how do you know it's Michael Vandenham on the front? Because the crowd got loud on that lap as they came through with 1 lap to go. Canada on the front of this bike race.
I will say one thing, Scott. We were talking earlier about Gage Heck and Kerry Werner and the non-orthodox passing style. Exact same thing here. He passed on the barrier side really close and tight. A dangerous move, but one that worked for him, and we'll get a time check as they come back towards the beach side.
I'm going to say it. I'm surprised at that tactic. I expected Vandenham to come up and sit right on White's wheel and say, you know what, for the next minute and a half, we're going to be into the wind, and I'm going to sit on your wheel. I'm going to let you do all that work, and then I'm going to try and get away from you, but not the case at all. Vandenham said, if I can control this bike race, that's what I'm going to do. And we're going to get a look at him here in just one moment. They're going to come back into our camera frame, and Vandenham pushing the pace on the front. He's out of the saddle. He is trying to drop White right now. White being plucky, though. He's right on his wheel. But look at this. Vandenham just pushing the pace every chance he gets to try and shed himself of White. Has he gone too early, Bill? I don't know.
I'm not going to doubt his move at all, and I think it's really what.
Look at
Here's
White
the
sitting
thing.
up.
We talked about what kind of a road racer Curtis White is. We talked about his size and his power. Do you want to take Curtis White to the finish line with you?
I 100% agree with that. As Vandenham knows that, as he
has to do it now.
Together, right?
He has to do it now to get away from him.
Look at him, all in from a body language. Vandenham has given everything he can over that flyover. If you think he's going to leave an ounce of energy out there, you're not watching the same bike race we are.
Yeah, and Kerry Werner has paid the price being behind that with those two just going as hard as they can up front. We are getting word from our officials that Stephen Hyde, and this is not a surprise, did drop out of the race. Again, we'll try to get an update on his condition after that nasty crash on the stairs.
Yeah, that's a tough spot for him to be in. So yeah, heart goes out to him for sure. As Bill said, we'll try and get an update. As right now we've got Vandenham, our Canadian national champion, trying to outsmart Curtis White as they make their way up and around. You can just see him in the background there. That is still Vandenham in the white kit on the front. And this place is getting loud and rowdy because the The home country right now representing.
I almost like White's position. You know, this could change, but he drove the pace for a lap. And you know he was burning matches because he was trying to get away, and it didn't work out for him. And now he's just able to follow wheels. And we were talking about what Vandenham doesn't want to do is bring Curtis White to the finishing stretch, because this is a guy who knows how to sprint. Well, White in the opposite position. All he has to do is stay on that wheel.
That's exactly what he's doing.
The thing that this race may come down to, though, is what we talked about, is that even for a strong sprinter like White, does he still need to be out front when they make that final turn? Is that much? We have seen nobody come around on the sprint from second position in 2 days of racing. Can he do that? Is he the one rider that's capable of doing that, or is this sprint going to actually happen during that, coming down that pit row? Is that where the sprint's going to happen?
I'm going to say we're going to see some diciness coming down there. So I'm just getting a check back. This is very unofficial. I'm going to say, if you look back at the last 4 times Michael Vandenham and Curtis White have raced together, Curtis White has won 3 out of the 4 races. On a very close, like they finished within a time or two. Vandenham knows that. He knows exactly what his hands are full of right now, and that is Curtis White.
How many of those have been in Canada?
That's the exact point. You're exactly right. And yesterday, Michael Vandenham, bronze medalist. White did not beat him yesterday. I think there's pushing.
Whoa, a little bit of a pushing. Curtis White trying to clear space at the top of the steps. We were talking earlier about making passes coming up those steps. That was a pro move right there. Coming up, going for that inside move.
They say it in NASCAR, they say it in cyclocross, rubbin's racing. And there's a little rubbing going on at the top of that. Nothing shady. I don't think there's anything shady.
Perfectly clear. Nobody was impeding anybody else's race line as they went up there.
That's champions trying to get to the front.
That's definitely the level of competition that we're seeing in this race, and it's going to – man, I can't wait to see them again. I wish we had a camera back there right now so we could see them going through that descent. But we will catch them in about another minute on the twists and turns and coming down to the front side of our race.
That answers your question. Does this race mean a lot to them? That answers your question right there. If it's elbow to elbow racing like that, coming all the way down to the finish, I'm going to go on record. I don't like how this looks for Michael Vandenham to take Curtis White to the line. That does make me nervous for him.
Yeah, just a half lap left in this race, right?
Yeah.
Just to keep everyone up to date, 23.5 kilometers per hour. They keep going faster every lap, Scott.
So even faster, lap after lap, as all riders going through, seeing 1 lap to go right now. So I'm just checking that we are on the final lap. We are on the final lap. And so they get a little bit out of sight. This is when they're out on the Frisbee golf section, the most distant part of it. So they'll go out of sight, and they'll come back in sight here.
Drew Dillman coming up. I have to imagine we are within 20 to 30 seconds of seeing them again, of switching our picture over. And here we go. On cue. Michael Vandenham still 2 bike lengths ahead. We already saw a little contact up top. I think we're going to see a little more coming through here, because this is where Curtis is going to. Well, I don't know. We're going to see it all together. We don't know what's going to happen. There's so many different ways to play this out. Curtis White is a super strong sprinter. He might just wait until they take that turn. I remember the Wout van Aert Matthew Van Der Poel race where he brake checked him coming into the finishing stretch. Could we see something like that from Vandenham? There's your pro move. Take Curtis, make him go foot down, and then not be able to sprint. But we are going to see it all play out here. We have just 2 more turns. We're going to see them come around the down final pit 2. Vandenham out of the saddle, putting in another big dig, coming into the flyover. He knows he has to play this perfect. This is going to be an all-out sprint underneath the flyover. And Scott Herman, I'm going to let you take them home.
Oh, White is licking his chops right now because he knows exactly what's about to happen, and that is this one's going to go all the way down to the line. Click, 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 go the gears. And it looks like getting boxed out on the right-hand side. I think there were some elbows being thrown again. These 2 are trying to go through. I think White slipped through, and boy, that was some argy-bargy racing there towards the end. They both wanted it bad. This place went ballistic. Canada vying for the top step of that podium, just getting out-sprinted by the young the wily Curtis White.
Wow.
That was amazing.
That was a sprint right
More
there.
of that kind of racing, please.
And it was we had the question, can you come around in the end? This was a long enough end, a long enough rollout that yes, Curtis White could do it. He picked the barrier side. Michael Vandenham is an accomplished road racer as well, and he did everything he could, but he also knew, and this guy is a top-rate racer, he was not going to shove him into the barriers. He was like, he's there, he has that racing line. I have to respect that. Although he tried to swing out at first. He tried to force Curtis to come back around to the left, which would have lost the race for White. But White just bulled his way through on that right-hand side and was able to take the win. Wow, what an exciting race. What a great win for Curtis White, getting another Pan Am championship. You got to feel for Michael Vandenham. He did everything he could. I don't think he can second-guess anything he did from that race. We certainly did from the beginning, thinking that he went out too hard and was leading the race too many laps, but in the end, he was in the position he wanted to be with the chance to win.
He raced his race. I mean, he can't say that he, had anybody else dictating the pace to him. He did what he needed to do to get where he needed to go. And like I said, more of that kind of racing, please. That was exciting racing all the way down to the finish. That was certainly great. Curtis White winning it. Michael Vandenham in second. Kerry Werner holding on for third place. Jack Kisseberth in fourth. Anthony Clark finishing up in fifth place. Cody Kaiser in sixth. Marc-Andre Fortier, your seventh place finisher. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we will be back for our final race of the day, our premier race of the day, your Women's Elite.